I will now be reading from Joshua 24, verses 14, 15, and 31. Now fear the Lord and serve him with all faithfulness. Throw away the gods your ancestors worshipped beyond the Euphrates River in Egypt, and serve the Lord. But if serving the Lord seems undesirable to you, then choose for yourselves this day whom you will serve, whether the gods your ancestors served beyond the Euphrates, or the gods of the Amorites in whose lands you are living. But as for me and my household, we will serve the Lord. Israel served the Lord throughout the lifetime of Joshua and of the elders who outlived him, and who experienced everything the Lord had done for Israel. Blessings to you, Lloyd, as you bring us the morning message.
Thank you, Dylan and Hannah. It's an honor to be with you. I guess it's been a month since I started at East Zora, and I'm still trying to put faces with names. I've got the directory, and it's helpful, and I'm making calls, but I feel like I've only begun to scratch the surface as far as getting to know everybody and associate people's faces with their names and to know them well. So yes, please be patient. I will hopefully call you soon, but you're on the list, but it's taking some time. Today is Mother's Day. I get to honor my 100-year-old mom. I went to visit her this week, and she was sitting at a piano playing an unrecognizable piece. I hadn't seen her play the piano for a long time. She's withered away. She's hardly 100 pounds, but she's still my mom, and I want to honor her today. This might be the last Mother's Day I can do so, but I try to honor her every day, obviously. And that's kind of what my message is about today. The family, a fortress or facade. It was Jesus who said, "A kingdom divided against itself is laid to waste or cannot stand." And we understand that families come in all kinds of different forms and sizes and ways and means. And yet family is important for each one of us, whatever that looks like. And so I want to talk about things that make a family strong. A sixth grade teacher handed out a questionnaire and said, complete this sentence, "I wish," and ... And she kind of thought, the kids would say, "I wish for a new bicycle, I'd like to go to Disney World," those types of things. But surprisingly, the majority of the responses came back as something to do with the family. I wish my parents wouldn't fight. I wish I could get straight A's so my dad would love me. These kind of responses. It just goes to show the importance and the influence of families. Mother Teresa, in her time, was asked, how do we promote world peace? And she said, go home and love your family. Wise words, wise woman. Go home and love your family. What items make for a fortress in our families? And I've got 6 I'm going to mention. There's more, and you folks are so smart, and some of you who are on 60 or more years, certainly you know already the things that make for a strong marriage. So I'm just going to highlight a few things that are very well known. I guess the first one I want to mention is commitment. There's something about saying I do. I think commitment begins before you say I do, and then after you say I do. Every day you got to say I do. Commitment means I'm going to be part of a team. I'm going to say family first. This person's important. They're priority. They're number one. And so we have this long-term commitment. I guess what highlights that one in my mind is when Naomi wanted to return to her home in Palestine. She left Moab, and she left her family there. Ruth and her sister, And the one sister went back. But what did Ruth say? She said, entreat me not to leave thee or from following after you. For where you go, I will go. Where you lodge, I will lodge. Your God will be my God, and your people, my people. There was a commitment there. And Ruth is a wonderful story of love and commitment through thick and thin. Kind of is in juxtaposition to my poor niece. She had a beautiful wedding about 5 years ago, maybe 7 years ago. Yeah, she's beautiful wedding, beautiful husband. She's a beautiful girl, and it seemed like they had the world by the tail. They had good jobs, but I guess for her husband, he had said, I do, but he got to a point where he didn't, and he went back to a former high school sweetheart, evidently, and their marriage is over, bringing a lot of heartache and pain to so many involved. Families take commitment to say yes, and there's all kinds of ways to help make that commitment solid, to kind of have some glue. There's things that you can do, such as the physical bonding, which is important, kisses and hugs and expressions of love. Physically, obviously, are very important. That's a great commitment to make and to keep up. There's also mental bonding, reading wonderful books and enjoying a mental stimulus through knowledge and learning things. There's that emotional bonding, and my wife is probably a lot better at this than me, but you know, you just need to be together. I remember one time the kids were coming home and I had a big appointment. I said, I can't be home. I want you to be with me. And she says, no, I gotta be home when they get home. The emotional bonding, it's important for me to be there. And I just said, well, they'll come home. We'll get home eventually. It'll all work out. No, I just got to be there when they walk in the doors. There's just something very special about that. Emotional bonding. And of course, there's spiritual bonding. When you pray together, when you read God's word together, those things also are very, very important. So there's this thing called commitment, to say I do and to keep saying I do every day. There's also time. Those who want to make their families a fortress, their relationships strong, they do things together. They have common interests. They spend time together. Somebody has satirically said, home is a domestic cloverleaf where we meet on the way to someplace else. That might be a saying and it might be cute, but making families strong means you spend time together. You can say, well, what my time is quality time, not quantity time. And I just want to say is that you generally have to spend quantity time together to have that quality time. Magic moments don't arrive just on cue. Quality time. Spend mega amounts of time together. The other thing that makes families strong is to express appreciation. So often we take the ones that we love the most for granted, and we don't merely say the things that are really important to say. Somebody said, home is where you go when you're tired of being nice to other people. Whoa, really? What about the receptionist who's on the phone and so sweet or so nice greeting people, and then she gets home and she wants to bite somebody's head off? Like, that doesn't seem right somehow. Or about the pastor who's shaking everybody's hands and Mr. Congeniality and gets home and is kind of unappreciative and cold to his family. It just doesn't add up. So home is where you express appreciation. You know a person's gifts, what they like to do, what they do well, and you express appreciation for it. You build them up, you make them strong, you encourage one another. This makes for a secure environment for everybody, a safe environment when you express appreciation. Evidently, of those incarcerated today, something like 90% grew up hearing that they were a bad kid and someday they would end up in jail. A sad indictment. We need to express appreciation daily for those in our family. The next thing I want to mention real quick is communication. To make a strong family, you got to communicate. I have noticed even after my long marriage, or seems like we've got a few years behind us, that my wife still can't read my mind. She's a wonderful woman, but she can't read my mind. I need to express myself, and I probably don't do it enough. Communicate, communicate, communicate. Evidently, some have said that if you've been married 10 years or longer, the average amount of time you spend talking to each other per week, this is the average couple, they spend 37 minutes. Whoa, that doesn't sound like an awful lot a week to talk together. We need to communicate our feelings, our interests, our goals, how to look after the kids and what you're going to do next and schedules and all that stuff. But we need to communicate. They say that those who have got divorces, it's about half the reason quoted for about half the marriages is lack of communication. My wife will ask me after I've spent 8 hours or more at work, she'll say, how was your day? Fine. That's really not sharing my day. Fine. What were you doing? Well, just work. Those are the easy responses. And we need to share our lives together. Communicate, communicate, communicate. One woman was fed up with her husband, so she went to the divorce lawyer and said, I want a divorce. And he said, do you have any grounds? She said, yeah, we got about 9 acres out in the country. He says, no. You got some grudges or something? And she says, yeah, well, we got a 2-car garage and we both can park our cars in there. And she says, no. Does he beat you up? And she said, no, he gets up at 7 o'clock. I get up at 6. No, he says, what's going on? Well, the guy just doesn't communicate. Next thing we need is coping skills. Coping skills. Sometimes you think, if we had no problems, we'd be happy. If we didn't have this difficulty or that difficulty, we'd be happy. And how come we have all the problems? Well, we need to understand that every couple has problems. Every couple has, every family has difficulties. It's not, nobody is immune. Sometimes you think if we're just spiritually wonderful, that somehow would have no problems. But this doesn't really happen that way. We all got problems, but it's our response to problems that is key. Not all families respond to problems the same way. Our response to problems can make us or break us. If problems break up a marriage, we'd all be divorced, but we need coping skills to help us through. Dennis the Menace said, as he sat in the corner in the old comic strip, he said, if you're raising me right, how come I get into so much trouble? If you're raising me right, how come I get into so much trouble? All God's people has trouble. We just need to have coping skills to get through. One family thought it'd be great to write a biography of their family history, and they, did a lot of research into who's who and what's what, and got back to the genealogies and stuff. And as they wrote the book, they said, what are we going to do about Uncle George? Uncle George had got himself into trouble. He had been tried and convicted of murder and was electrocuted. And so the family writing this biography said, how are we going to handle Uncle George? What are we going to say about him? So they hired a writer. And this writer tried to say something about Uncle George. And this is what he came up with. Uncle George occupied a chair of applied electronics in an important government institution. He was so attached by the strongest of ties that his death came as a real shock. When you have problems, it's time to get creative. And as you know, the Chinese word for crises and the Chinese word for opportunity is the same word. It's our response to problems that makes the difference. We need to get creative. The last thing I want to mention is spiritual health. Spiritual health has an awful lot to do with making a family strong and being a strong family. They say that if both parents are faithful, strong Christians, it seems like 70% of the kids will also follow suit and come to faith or return to faith. If just the husband is a spiritually strong person and following Christ, it seems like 55% of those following, 55% of the kids, of the children will follow suit. If just the mom is a spiritual person and following Christ, only 15%. Both people being committed makes a huge difference. Why? Because we have God on our side. He's the one who brings us joy and happiness, and we're much better beings when we're spiritually connected to God and also to each other. Spiritual health is very, very important. Joshua was a great leader. He took the children of Israel into the promised land. They divided up the land. He was a great leader. And his last words, as recorded and Dylan's already read, was, "Choose you this day who you will serve. As for me and my house, we will serve the Lord." And the Bible says the children of Israel followed the Lord after that, all Joshua's days. Last words are kind of important. And Joshua's last recorded words were, "Serve the Lord." Some mothers are talking about when to spiritually impact their kids. And there was much discussion. One grandmother finally said, "I decided to spiritually impact my kids 20 years before they were born, when I decided to follow Jesus." And so it's so very important to have spiritual health and to impact our kids and impact our families for good. If we're whole, if we're complete, if we're fulfilled, that's going to have rewards for the whole family. And so I'm sure many today would say, "I want my family to be strong. I want my family to be a fortress, not a facade." Jesus said, "The wise person builds their house on the rock." Today, may you decide and renew your commitment to put your house on the rock, to follow the principles of Christ, to follow him, and to serve him all your days. If you want to be a better mom or a better dad, make a spiritual commitment to the Lord, because he will make your family even better. God bless you, each one.